say that now, VITA? Still not real sure. So we're still, this idea came up through, I guess, a meeting that VITA had, what's that, 2 years ago, last, in the summer. And we got different groups together from the state, and realized each other's existence from that effort. And lo and behold, we all had some commonalities. So as a result, we thought we'd try to get together and see if we could bring some of those out, get to know each other, and see if there's some areas that we can blend in and actually help each other's efforts move forward. At any rate, we're glad to be here, and we'd like to turn it over first of all to Dr. Bill Judd, who's so gracious to allow us to be here today. Dr. Judd, would you like to?
Very happy to have you all here today. A familiar face, Jim. A couple of things, I guess, by way of welcome and an explanation as to why I'm welcoming you, why you're in the library, is that here at VCU, some 8 years ago, the library operations and the university-wide media operations were merged into a single organization called University Library Services. And I am the director of it. And actually, this is my anniversary. I came in on the first day of February, 1982. And what I thought was a temporary assignment, and it's lasted 8 years. I don't know how much longer it'll last, but we'll see. I am really happy to have you here. My background is educational technology. And there are those on the library side who wonder why I'm director of the whole operation. But I think that somebody has to be. And I am a believer that the education technology type or the librarians can either one be, as long as these operations do work together and do integrate with one another. So I was glad that at your opening, as you're talking about meeting, two separate groups meeting. I think there is strength in numbers, and I think that these critical times, at least with the state budgets the way they're going, I think that we are going to need some numbers and some critical masses to get what we want to get accomplished in the 90s. I guess the student body will help us out by the mid-90s. It's supposed to be much larger by then. And with that usually comes a human cry for more and better services. I'm not sure we can wait that long. I'd like to brag just a little bit about some of the things that we'll do. I asked Rick Wynant on the way in if you're going to have any opportunity to look at some of our operations, but let me brag on a couple of things that we're doing. We have been working steadily, I think, for some time in the area of teleconferencing. We have held any numbers of teleconferences here. In fact, there was one for Black History Month that is being run at the same time. In fact, we can probably get it tuned in here as part of this meeting. But we have been working along that line. Rick has been working with the university to try and get an initiation classroom here. I'm not sure with the end of the lottery money whether we'll get fortunate enough to add that or not, but we'll see. We've been working in interactive video. Jane Terpstra is on our staff, including a couple of major projects with the School of Medicine and the School of Basic Health Sciences. And one of these days we hope to get her back into University Library Services and do some major projects for us as well with interactive video. I guess the third thing to mention is our involvement with the computer graphics project. We've been doing that for a couple of years, slowly building up that support clientele for that. And I am very excited by some of the things that we have projected into the 90s, even with the cash and budget cuts that all of us are facing. So I wish you well for your two-day conference, and I hope that a lot of good things come out of it. And I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you.
Okay, so I see really what seems to be more decent numbers here right now than the numbers. I think we have more on our list than
words of thanks to all the people that worked on this session, conference for 2 days. Randy and Chuck and Rick put this together. As Randy said, we came together at the VITA meeting a few months ago, and we just looked at all of these organizations around the state. Our constituents were belonging to one or belonging to two, and we just decided, you know, it's about time that we quit batting heads and maybe help each other out and help our membership. That's the big thing. We wanted to try to get together and have some joint conferences, joint publications, maybe some discounts at each other's meetings, just so we can help each other out and cooperate on our programs. We didn't want to conflict with each other. So I hope you do have a good time today and tomorrow. I would like to remind you that VITA is having its annual meeting in Williamsburg, March 15th and 16th. If you are not a VITA member and on our mailing list, you might want to drop your name and address with Chuck, and we'll be sure that you get a brochure and get some information. We'll be at the Fort Magruder in Williamsburg. So we hope to see you all there. Enjoy yourself today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Jim? Okay, well, I guess it's about time to begin this thing. Starting with the first session here. First talked to Bob Starr back at the winter, fall meeting, and we talked about doing up, he was interested in trying to develop a program around the video production system. In fact, you first called it down and dirty video production. So this is, anyway, let's see, we ended up calling it small studio video production. Is that okay? Something similar? Okay. All yours.
The name small studio production, all of it is videos full time. I did go through a couple of name changes. Chief really doesn't explain it either. So low budget is not really good either. So I ended up with budget video. What I want to talk to you about is the things I'm doing not only as a professor and director of the Television Production Center at JMU, but also as an independent producer in the Harrisonburg Valley and greater Shenandoah Valley area. I've been director of the TV Production Center for about 5 years now. I've been at JMU for 11 years, and about in 1981 I started my own video production business for 2 reasons. One being we had a lot of requests at the university for video production services that were in the commercial arena, and as a state agency, some of the things I couldn't justify because I would be in competition in the university setting with the local ABC affiliate. So I said, well, maybe there's some bugs here. So at that point in time, I made the decision to start my own production company. Started out with 1 camera, no portable VCR, and half an editing system. So that was no budget. I think the relevant comments that I have for you today deal with how I've used a PC in my productions. Being a budget video operation, I've had to cut corners everywhere, and yet try to use some of the capabilities of video computer graphics in my commercial, not only commercial production for commercials, but industrials, training tapes, that sort of thing on the low ends. So I would like to present you with some ideas in a kind of a 3-part presentation. Explain how I got into Independent Video Associates, which is my company, some of the clients I've worked for, and a couple short examples. Then I'd like to talk about how I have tried to interface computers and video, not only at JMU, but in my Independent Video Associates company as well. And then if we have time, Randy doesn't give me the sign to sit down, I'd like to just give some short comments about where I'm going with computers and video, not only at JMU, but in my business. As I said before, I started out very small, 1 camera, having an editing system. In the last 9 years, I've been able to put together a modest equipment package, 3-camera studio, and all this is at my 2-car garage at home, which drives my wife crazy, but it pays some of the bills, so that's how I get by with doing it. I'm capable of doing computer graphics on a PC now. Have a switcher, AV roll editing system. This may mean nothing to some of the other members of the other group, but for the video people, they probably will key in on some of these words. At any rate, I probably am the only commercial broadcast quality independent producer in our part of the Shenandoah Valley. Now, I do this in addition to my full-time job at JMU, so I end up working sometimes 18, 20 hours a day. But since I love video, it's okay, because some people spend a lot of time on their hobbies. Video really is my hobby. Some of the clients I've had in the past are very large companies in that area and very small concerns. I'm going to show you two examples right now. One of a family day activity that I got an assignment on a Friday, shot it on a Saturday, edited it Sunday night, and gave it to the client on Monday, who gave it to 2,500 employees on Tuesday. Now, it wasn't quite that. It took some time to double, but it was that kind of deal. I've done a lot of work for the turkey companies in the Harrisburg area. That area is known for poultry, and I've become known as the turkey man, as the one who produces turkey videos, but I have to qualify that too. I've shot all the jobs in one particular company. I've done promotional tapes for two of the major poultry companies in the Harrisburg area, so I feel qualified to talk about turkey video. Let me show you an example, a very short example of this family video, just to give you an idea of some of the stuff I do. Wasn't dancing to this music, by the way. As a promotional effort, the company bought 2,500 VCRs. Unfortunately, I didn't get the contract, but then they wanted to put something into the VCRs, and this was a family day activity. So we produced this tape real short time, just to let people see kids' faces and all that. You get the idea. Everybody in the company got a VCR for Thanksgiving, which is appropriate for a turkey. Now, I have to set up this next project. It's not my best, and it's not my worst, but it is definitely the most unique and interesting I've done. It's about an 8-minute video, and I'd like to show you the whole thing. I was contacted by the dog warden of Augusta County last year, who has never been bitten in his 20 years on force. And he says, I've got this technique, and I really want to communicate to the public. He says, I think we can produce a training tape of my techniques in handling aggressive dogs, and we can market this nationwide. Okay? I don't have any money for the production, so I will give you a percentage. You've heard this before. I'll give you a percentage of the sales. And I said, well, okay, I'll do it. I'll get a minimum production charge, and then I'll take a percentage of the sales. That was the deal. He was real excited, And I said, the one stipulation is that I will not get near the dog, because I don't trust your method, the way you're gonna do it. So he said, we'll put you in a truck, in my truck, and you can shoot it all from the truck. This is my first use of an image capture board to relate it to what we're doing in this meeting. An image capture board that I have cost me about $600. There are various prices, but allows me to digitize an image, manipulate the image, titling, text, and all that. It was the first chance I had to really use this board for a major, semi-major production. So let me show it to you right now. Everybody give that a
The information contained in this presentation is for those whose jobs require contact with vicious or aggressive dogs. We do not suggest using the techniques presented when avoidance is possible. The methods you are about to see are only as effective as the implementer's adherence to the principles involved. Mr. Philip Massey has been handling aggressive and vicious dogs for over 20 years. During this time, he has developed an effective means of controlling such animals. He readily admits that the methods he uses are simple and require no prolonged training. Mr. Massey has never been bitten or attacked by any of the hundreds of animals he has handled during his employment as a dog warden.
This method is simple because we use aggression and power, exactly what the dog uses and respects.
If your job requires that you go door to door, you will frequently be met by a vicious dog. You need to know how to deal with these situations if you are to avoid injury and if you are to carry out your responsibilities in a safe and professional manner. In the next few minutes, you will learn what an aggressive dog's actions will be and what your actions must be to take control of the situation. In dealing with an aggressive dog, you must realize that you are invading his territory. Instinct dictates that the dog act in an aggressive way to guard his space. What you do beyond this point will determine who has control. If you initiate positive pressure, the dog will respond to the signal and back off. If, however, you react in a negative way, the dog will sense your weakness and will be all the more determined to stand his ground. It's all in the signal you give the dog. If you know the proper signals and communicate them quickly and forcefully, you will prevail. The dog is watching your every step and can tell when you show weakness. First, you should move in the direction of the dog. Your eyes should be fixed on the dog, following every movement it makes. Use a firm and commanding voice, and use other demonstrative actions that will show you are in control and know what you are doing. Initially, the most important signal is the movement toward the animal. Use only what is necessary as the confrontation develops, so you have other signals in reserve if it becomes necessary to exert even more force. Negative signals include stopping or hesitating, turning and running, screaming or shouting in a terrified voice, and acting in a submissive way. It's all a matter of body language. A nervous, uncertain retreat may send a signal to even a friendly dog to chase you. A smooth, confidently aggressive movement toward the dog results in the signal you are looking for. At this point, let's watch as Philip deals with another animal. Keep in mind what we have said up to this point and observe the signals he is giving the dog. Some dogs may not be easily discouraged. All you have to do is continue what you are doing. The dog will attempt to circle you. Keep your eyes glued on him and walk in his direction. If the dog takes his eyes off of you, use the opportunity to make some noise. You will be amused at how quickly the dog will lose his motivation. You may think that just standing still will be effective. The dog will interpret this as submission and will be encouraged to continue his behavior. The use of chemicals or weapons may give the victim some sense of strength, but they will not be needed if the correct signals are given. Carry them with you if you need the psychological support, but once again, they will not be needed if you show strength. Let's watch as Philip approaches an aggressive dog inside a fence. Notice how he gets the upper hand as quickly as possible. This is especially important in situations such as these, where the presence of a fence or barrier seems to make the dog even more aggressive. A dog inside a building presents a similar problem. You need to move quickly with the in control signals. Leave the door open so the dog has a means of escape. The aggressive dog on a chain presents perhaps the most difficult situation. If at all possible, try to avoid this problem. But such jobs as firemen, rescue squad workers, or law enforcement personnel may be required to enter the space of a chained-up dog. Our advice in the situation is to use a catch pole, which has a hook on the end, allowing you to reach out and snag the chain, slipping it up to the collar of the dog. Unless this method is used, it is very easy for an aggressive dog to get you tangled up in a chain, rendering you helpless on the ground. Many dog bites occur when a person is leaving a dog's space. It is natural to turn your back to the dog and take your eyes off of him. At this time, the dog may feel less threatened and slip up behind you to nip at your legs or rear. We suggest that you not take your eyes off the dog, and if he does come toward you, simply display the correct signals, and he will leave you alone. Most people have a healthy respect for strange dogs, and most will likely benefit from these instructions. There are those individuals who have a dog phobia and may never be able to administer the correct signals. What we have attempted to do in this tape is to give the average person whose job requires occasional or frequent contact with aggressive dogs an edge which will help him or her to avoid harmful encounters. You can be in control and get your job done at the same time. Good luck!
It was an interesting project. We've sold about 200 tapes so far. It's been endorsed by the Augusta County Sheriff's Department. We're trying to UPS to endorse it. And one California firm who specializes in accessories of this nature is going to market it starting next year. So it may go somewhere. It was a lot of fun doing it. To carry on with this idea of using computers in a small video production, that card that I was talking about, the image capture board, is paid for itself 1,000 times over. At the time, I thought $600 for a computer card was just exorbitant. But it's really pulled me out a lot of messes, and also I think enhanced some of my production. Some of you video people will notice some of the bad edits there go into those graphics. This card has the ability to either go non-interlaced or interlaced. And when I was just first learning how to use it, I was always on the non-interlaced mode, and I was getting bad edits. I've since learned how to generalize it, so the edits are much cleaner. I want to set up the next presentation for you because I think this is definitely relevant to anybody dealing with both video and computers. JMU has a touch-tone registration system right now that has been in the planning stages. Actually, it's online now. So it was in the planning stages for a good 2 or 3 years before it was implemented. So the students at JMU can dial in via a touch-tone phone and register, which eliminates the long lines and all the heartaches associated with what we were used to when we were more students. I was contacted by the computer office a year before they were going to implement it, and we flew up to some college in Ohio who had already had this online. And the purpose of my attendance there was to see how it went together so I could come up with a training tape to show all the students before they indeed went online. And Sharon, last year. Surprisingly, the reaction has been rather mixed. Some students don't want to touch it. You would think that contemporary college students, wow, technology, a lot of them don't use it. They also have the open registration as they always did. Many students elect to go through the lines and all that. However, the numbers are increasing all the time. So the tape you're about to see covers the touchstone registration system, which is computer-based, voice-activated, and leads the student through all the registration ins and outs, even paying bills. So it'll be interesting for you, I think, on that basis. Plus, I used my home computer, since at that time we did not have a graphics computer in the production center at JMU. I used my home computer for a lot of the graphics. We did have a character generator at school, and you'll definitely see the quality difference, but obviously the PC gave me some graphics abilities that I didn't have on the standalone character generator. This is about, I think, 10 or 12 minutes tape, but I think it's worth you seeing the whole thing. If your school is looking at touchstone registration, or if you've been interested in it, this kind of explains the process. Not too technically, but will explain what the student goes through in trying to use the system.
This presentation will teach you how to use the touchstone registration system here at JMU. But before covering specific procedures, it may be helpful for you to understand how the system works. This diagram represents a simplified picture of the system. Using the existing computer's database, a phone interface device which is pre-programmed with voice responses guides the student through the registration process. For example, after accessing the system by dialing the registration number, a student will be prompted to enter on the phone keypad a PIN number, or personal identification number. The computer then accesses the student's record and will make further responses based on information in that record. All of the usual registration transactions will be handled over the phone, thus greatly simplifying the process. With that in mind, let's go through the procedures for using the system. In the next few minutes, you will learn how to do these transactions: accessing the system, adding courses and finding out about open sections, dropping and listening courses, receiving a tuition summary, and handling problems. In this scene, you will learn how to access the system and add courses.
Welcome to JMU's telephone registration system. Enter a session code followed by the pound key now. You have requested registration for spring semester 1989. Enter your social security number followed by the star key, then your personal identification number followed by the pound key.
At this time, the system will check to see if you are eligible to register. It checks for administrative holds. It also checks to see if you are calling at the appointed time.
You may proceed with registration. Enter a request now.
To add a course, press A plus the course index number and CC for credit, CP for credit no credit, or RC for repeat credit, then the pound key.
You have added English 101, Section 4. Enter a request now. Section 2 is open and will fit your schedule. To add the open section, enter the course index number followed by the pound key.
Once again, here are the procedures for accessing the system and adding courses. Call the registration number. At prompt, key in session code. At prompt, key in social security number and personal identification number. At prompt, add courses by keying in A plus the course index number and the pound key. In the following scene, you will learn how to drop a class and list your schedule. To drop a course, press D, followed by the course index number and the pound key.
You have dropped History 265, Section 1. Enter a request now. You have added History 265, Section 6. Enter a request now.
To list your schedule, press L, followed by the pound key.
You are registered for English 101, Section 4, History 265, Section 6. Enter a request now.
If you would like information about a specific course, press L, followed by the course index number and the pound key.
English 101, Section 4, meets Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. in Kiesel, room 308. Enter a request now.
Once again, here are the procedures for dropping and listing courses. Press D, followed by the course index number and the pound key to drop. Press L, followed by the pound key to list your schedule.
Let me zoom through the middle section that talks about problems. We did have one section on here, however, where we had
Tuition total.
foreign study students, they could call in overseas and register for the section. They did. So that's
$351.
We went into a lot of different problems and how they deal with it, how to pay the police to act in the registration process. I did want to show you the credits because
We have plenty of
the credits were done rather complicated technique of chroma keying over backgrounds, and I didn't have any way at the time of keying in any animated graphics for IDing names. So I used a PC storyboard, some of you may be familiar with that, and shot off of a CGA screen, ran it through the switcher on a key mode, and superimposed that over. It came out kind of nice.
for 20 or more hours. Make sure you clear all holds and call at the appointed time or you will not be able to access the system. The system will detect inactivity and will automatically hang up, canceling all transactions. Good luck.
the schools represented here use it, thinking about it? How's it going? Kids accepting it?
They send a discount.
Oh, I see. Well, let me, not touch on like that, but it's other than lives. Okay. If you're interested in the system at JMU, I can get you in contact with the person who actually programmed it. But the interface box and all the connections are certainly what we're supplied by a vendor. But the programming is done by one of our resident programmers in the school. The next thing I'd like to do is talk about the funnest part of my production efforts as an independent producer. I have done a number of commercials in the past for the ABC affiliate in the Harrisonburg area, but I've never pursued commercial production because that station supplies production in their charges. So when I try to go out and make money off production, the clients say, hey, we can get it done free at the station. So I've done 2 or 3, 4 or 5 over the last few years. In July, I was contacted by a man who received a contract from a cable company to do ad insertions. I think that's probably a prevalent phenomenon all over the country. He says, I've got 4 networks, ESPN, CNN, TNN, and USA, and I purchased the equipment to insert commercials, and I need somebody to produce the commercials and to edit the weekly lineup of spots to go on. And so I said, it sounds interesting. So I jumped into it blind. And it's opened up a new world to me of low-budget video and developing client-producer relationships on a shoestring, and what clients expect you to do that you can't possibly do, and you have to make them happy with the limited equipment that you have. So I have a number of commercials that I'm going to show you in the time remaining. And I'll say up front, I'm not going to make any excuses for these. Some are good, some are bad, some don't even qualify for that. I will try to explain the production process, and in many of them, how I used the PC to get the effect that I got. I think probably the best way to do this is to show you a spot first, rather than set it up and make any excuses for it. I'll show it to you first and then talk about how it was achieved. I just hit play.
Did Santa miss something? Get the Get Santa Forgot Now at year-end prices from Ace Music and Electronics. We've got that camcorder you wanted at savings of up to $800. Save over $700 on a 43-inch big screen, or grab a Mitsubishi TV as low as $278. Big clearance on Onkyo, JVC, Advent, and more. Massive reductions on guitars, keyboards, and drums. You'll never see these prices again in 1989, so forget the fat guy and do it yourself at Ace Music and Electronics.
This spot aired both on the station and on the phone system for a number of weeks. Is anyone familiar with the PC program Fonzie? It's a real simple animation program. Shoot off of the screen, that's how I got all the effects. Now on my video switcher, I've got a downstream keyer that has shadowing on it. So for the video people, if you know some shadowing, that did come off the screen. I had to add that later. But with the simple animation, it certainly enhances some of the effects. The explosion there at the end was done with the synthesizer through my switcher that has an external white modulator. So I just hit the appropriate button on the synthesizer and exploded that white out and tried to match it with the animated explosion. Did it work? Sort of. This next is entirely different.
What would you say about a person who's allergic to fur and then gives you a cat for your anniversary? My husband. Or how about if I mention I'd like the house painted? I come home from work, it's painted. Well, he's not an ordinary person. He's special. When I remember him on his birthday or our anniversary, I find something special out of the ordinary. He's my friend.
This lady is a DJ at one of the local stations and has done TV before. We did this in my living room, actually my den. I use my den as my studio space. My studio, my control room is adjacent to the den, so I moved the furniture out of the way to set up whatever I need. My wife was crazy, but that's what I have to do. She's semi-professional. Okay, it took 3 takes to get this. I think it was pretty good. It's pretty convincing. Husband was another story. Okay, so one of the things I've learned as a producer doing this kind of spots, you're dealing with, I won't say untalented, but as yet discovered talent. And her husband, nice guy, he almost came to tears. Now I wasn't producing this. An independent producer hired me to put it together. And so after all this coaching, he almost came to tears. 3 hours later, here's what we came up with as the other spot. Okay.
How do you tell someone that you're proud of her for pursuing a career? My wife, Cheryl, a working woman and a full-time wife. She's not an ordinary person. She's special. When I go shopping for her, I find something special. Out of the ordinary. She's my friend.
It took a long time. Much stress. But that's one of the things I learned, simply patience. You have to go into a situation with a lot of patience. And you have to bend around your talent's ability.
It's Santa's spectacular sale at American Accents. Now American Accents offers great savings on hand-thrown pottery, elegant lamps, exquisite hand-blown glass, stemware, vases, and candlesticks, wood kitchenware, toys, and many more practical and decorative handcrafted gifts now at 30 to 50% savings. Save time and money with personal gifts from American Accents in the Scottsburg Valley Square, Harrisonburg.
The reason I showed you this one, I came across a character generator board for PC. You may have seen the advertisement a couple of years ago for this. It was a $1,600 board where you could buy the entire thing. And it was a simple character generator and a paint program. 4,000 color palette, that sort of thing. I said, fantastic, this is what I need. At the time, JMU had a computer lottery where if you won the lottery, they would pay for half of whatever peripheral you needed, or it went towards a computer. I won that year. So I paid $700 to $800 for this board. The company went defunct the following year. I only had one software program. I actually two, the paint program and the character generator. I cannot find anybody who's associated with that company to find out, if there's any more software. So I forget the name of it. Do you remember seeing that? It was a low-cost board. It promised broadcast characters. Well, you'll never see it again. I have probably the only board. But it still works. The credit graphics at the end were done with the paint program. The roll of reveal was done with the character generator program. It was 512 by 512 resolution. You can see little jagged edges here and there, but it's okay for what I'm doing. While I'm on the subject of resolution, I have found out that when shooting off of a screen, and you can only do it with a CGA screen because you have a different scene, you're going to get a fluctuation in there. But even though it's low resolution, 320 by 200, by shooting it off the screen and adjusting the contrast on your monitor, you can make very curved edges around your characters. Anybody else discovered that?
Hi, I'm Terry Denton, and I'd like to invite you to experience for yourself probably the greatest sale that Denton's Furniture has ever had in its 111-year history. For 111 years of serving the people of Harrisonburg and surrounding areas, Denton's Furniture Store announces a great $1 million store closing remodeling sale. Plans to remodel parts of the store make it imperative to sell thousands of dollars worth of merchandise at once. So we're not closing, folks, or going anywhere. We're just getting better.
On this one, I had the advantage of an experienced counselor. He's the owner of the store and he's done this a number of times. So I was dealing with the 3-minute script. And I had to get it down to 30 minutes. Because the salesperson who sold the spot wrote something out. She agreed to it. We never saw a stopwatch. Okay? So what you see is 3 minutes crammed down to 30 seconds. And I think it worked. She paid for it, so she was happy.
Video entertainment. Top movies are available every day for less.
Start this again.
We're just getting better.
ET Video offers you the latest in video entertainment. Top movies are available every day for less. Call now to find out how you can rent your favorite movie for only 70 cents per day. That's right, 70 cents per day. Call 433-9893. Thousands of movies at ET Video and more arriving daily. Call ET Video now for details on this special offer. ET Video next to South Main Games.
This is really a standard kind of cable spot. You get 3 or 4 pictures or something. You have to come up with a script, some music, throw in whatever you can. The company went out of business a week later. I hope it wasn't due to my spot. I never got paid for this.
You wait until now to buy a new car. We've got great news for you. Right now, Harrisonburg Honda is holding a spectacular end of model clearance sale. The new 1990s are on the way, so the remaining 89s have got to go. We're offering every 89 Accord branded CRX and Civic at unheard of sale prices. Come to Harrisonburg Honda today and make the deal of a lifetime on your favorite Honda. We treat you right.
I'll go on and show you the next one because they're both Honda spots.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Shenandoah Valley, after years in the making, Harrisonburg Honda is now proud to introduce the 1990 Honda Accord sedan. Larger than ever, inside and out. But that's just the beginning. You have to drive it to believe it. The 1990 Honda Accord sedan at Harrisonburg Honda. Now in stock and available for the test drive you always wanted. We invite you to stop by Harrisonburg Honda soon, because seeing is believing.
It was necessary for me to show at least one of these car commercials because car commercials I've probably done 60. But they're easy to do because you have manufacturer footage. You find some nice stuff. They probably pay, a lot of money to have someone shoot the video. So it's a lot of fun editing it together and dropping in a few graphics there. Again, I didn't produce this. There's a fellow who does all the voice and music for a lot of radio spots in the area. He's probably one of the best radio producers. And he was a friend of the fellow who got the contract to do the ad sales. So we got together and we produced probably 50 commercials since July. It's been a really good relationship because, as you heard on the ET video, my voice is not very good. As my wife reminds me every time I try to do a voiceover.
When you mix fun, food, and friends, you get O'Toole's. O'Toole's is the place to meet your old friends and make new ones. O'Toole's, just behind Valley Mall in Harrisonburg. Make O'Toole's your place.
I wish I could say that this was done with my equipment. I don't have a digital effects unit. I rented the one from Jamie that we just received back Christmas. But I did want to show you what you can do with storyboard. This is done with PC storyboard. Okay? Shooting off of the screen, I went out of focus a little bit, which fattened up the letters, and ran it through my downstream key with heavy edging. And then the idea was to bring the pictures in and have the graphics fill up the empty spaces. And we had originally had voiceover for the entire thing. And the client looked at it and said, why say anything? Let's just do the voice tag at the end and let the pictures speak for themselves. I think it turned out better.
You work hard all your life, see your dreams come true. Don't let anyone take that away from you.
Port Road Business Services, a professional accounting firm here to handle your taxes. Port Road Business Services, we care more, answering all your tax questions throughout the year.
Helping you hold on to your dreams.
Port Road Business Services, located on Port Road, Harrisonburg.
Yeah, another example of PC store. I rely on that program a whole lot. And this aired on the local ABC affiliate for a whole tax season. This company's been in business too. I don't know what that says about their advertising. They don't do taxes. Well, they haven't gone out of business. They don't do taxes anymore. I have, let's see, what, 7 minutes left? Okay, then I'll get a couple more of these, and then I want to kind of wrap things up.
In 20 years, the cost of a college education will grow from $24,000 to $63,000. Are you prepared? If it takes $2,000 a month for living expenses now, in 25 years at 5% inflation, that number will grow to $6,700. Are you prepared for your retirement? Are you prepared to pay additional taxes because you didn't plan properly? The Showmore Lineweaver Agency, a respected name in insurance, is now equally qualified to provide professional financial services. Call Norm Stern and Mike Equal at 434-1301.
This is right after I got the main position software, and I had so much fun. It took me 3 hours to do this. I said, the client's going to love it, okay? Because I had so much fun putting it together. Showed it to the client, didn't like it. He said, do it my way, okay? Now I'm going to let you be the judge. This was my way. What you're about to see is his way. Of course, it's all my equipment, but this is his way. Then you can tell me which one you would have bought. Hopefully you would have bought one of them.
In 20 years, the cost of a college education will grow from $24,000 to $63,000. If it takes $2,000 a month for living expenses now, in 25 years at 5% inflation, that will grow to $6,700. Are you prepared to pay unexpected taxes because you failed to plan? The Showmo and Lineweaver Agency, a respected name in insurance, now provides professional financial services. Call Norm Stern or Mike Heatwolf to help you plan for the future.
That's, thank you very much. Steve. What I deal with in the Harrisonburg area, a lot of conservative folks, okay, would rather go with slide, tag than something out of the ordinary because they think it's going to make their company look better. Well, be that as it may, I run into that a whole lot. This, they did say, since you've done so much work, we'll pay you for those spots. So I didn't lose a multi-billion-dollar insurance company. I'm sure that would hurt. Let me take just a few minutes to conclude. Try to get finished before I total finish. Video production has been my life and my love for approximately 20 years now. And as most of you, I've grown up with video. It's not one of those old technologies that I happen to come into. It's been with me ever since. So I have seen all the changes. I lugged around the big Intex reel-to-reel VCR, you know. Erling, he's my operations manager at the production center. He did most of the production, all the production at one point in time on those big 1-inch machines. We've seen them squeezed down and portable units. Now we've seen the advent of computer graphics. And it's never, you're never able to do what you see on the networks, okay? Because you're talking about very exorbitant costs for computer graphics. And as a producer, you look at all this stuff and you say, only I could do that. So when the PCs came along and computer graphics started developing, I said, aha, this is my chance to play around with things that I would never have a chance to play around with as long as I stay in education. My second love is teaching and education, so I wanted to stay there. So the PC graphics, the evolution of such has really been of interest to me, and I can truly say that without the computer enhancement of the commercials I do, I probably wouldn't have a sales product. Because the client's idea was seat handling ability. Even on the local ABC bill, they had better equipment than I did. So that's what they expect. But in a small market area that I am, that is really not my mainstay of my production business. I do industrials, training tapes, and that sort of thing, which really is the largest portion of my income from my independent production business. The commercial thing came about last July, and I really enjoyed it because unlike an industrial production, I can play around with some of these interesting effects. Because many of the industrial productions, they just want shot, 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 voiceover. So let me conclude by giving you a chance to ask me questions about what you've seen, what I'm into.
This question goes way back. With the company Picnic, the music that you use in the background, how do you get music? Do you have to commission it?
Well, I have a composer. In fact, at JMU, it's a great environment to get free music or low-cost music because we have a great music department there. The students with synthesizers in their dorm rooms can come up with some very good stuff. I have a whole music library of student-produced original stuff. In fact, the majority of music that you heard came from non-copyrighted, individually produced stuff. That's probably impossible in a non-university environment. I try to stay legal.
You obviously are using an IBM.
First meeting an hour on plenty of time.
I can't talk longer than that.
She just got through giving her road show at VMI about a week or so ago, and we had the biggest group that I can remember we've ever had to come out and hear anything about using computers. We actually got 40 to 50 people to come, which is a lot of folks on our campus. She does an excellent job. Regional sales manager, regional manager for WordPerfect is what Wendy does. She probably is the most talented person you'll see show off WordPerfect 5.1. I think you'll all be rather impressed with the product after she shows it.
First of all, I know it's hot and everything in here, but I brought things to wake people up. We used to throw peanut M&Ms. No? Okay. We used to throw peanut M&Ms, but this is a new release, so. Although actually it's because Price Club was out of the peanut M&Ms. I don't guarantee what these taste like, but they may keep you awake.
They're not clones,
They're not clones.
Have red dye in it?
Yes, the new ones do. You know, I once got some with red in it, and I thought I had a 40-year-old package. Oops, sorry about that. But what it really was the new red dye.
Thank you.
Do it in the dark? Oh, that's, I can't even throw it in the light.
Do one of these have a free update?
I'll start making a commercial out of this.
Free updates. Free updates are all done. No more free updates.
Cash flow problem.
WordPerfect's going down.
That's right. We can't make a profit.
Thanks for the M&M.
Who didn't get one? You didn't get one.
No, actually, they gave me the thing.
I can watch TV. That and the different. This is a good one.
Okay, I'm ready. Some of you may have been at VMI last week. I know at least one person was. So you may want to tune out while we talk about this. It's probably going to be essentially the same. I can only say so much about the same product. But anyway, WordPerfect 5.1. I want to. How many of you are at 5.0? Most of you? Oh, good. And the rest? Who's at 4.2? Okay. Okay. Let me tell you what's going on with these products. 4.2 to 5.0 was a big jump. Those of you who made the jump know it. You know that there was a major conceptual change, the way we handled printing and documents and font changes, etc. Everything changed. And so it was a major jump to 5.0. That is not the case with 5.1. What we have done is essentially refine everything that we did in 5.0. We have made the product, we hope, easier to use. It's easier than 4.2 was, it's easier than 4.1 was. It is a more comprehensive product, but we trust it is easier to use. So I think that those people who didn't bother to make the jump to 5.0 might see some things in here that they really need and want. Another thing I want to point out is that we get the ideas for our products from the cards and letters that we get from our users. We do maintain a customer enhancement request database. And when you send in a suggestion that does go into our database, we do consider it. And that's where we got most of the ideas for 5.1. You might be aware that 98% of what was in that database is now in 5.1. So if you still don't see a feature that you need or want, it's because no one told us you needed or wanted it. So write into us, okay? We really do want the suggestions. We run out of ideas now and again. Okay, I'm going to skip through some of the more obvious hype here, all right? And go to some of the things that we changed between 4.2 and 5.0, and some of the things that have always been there. Styles, kerning, line numbering, document preview, on-screen columns, integrated text and graphics, a whole list of things that have made us number one. You might be interested to know that between 1988 and 1990, we went from having 30 to 70% of the market share. So we're real proud of that. Okay, first thing we did, we added pull-down menus. I can hit my Alt key. I always forget my mouse, so I don't have my mouse with me. But I can hit my Alt key, have pull-down menus. They are pull-down pop-out menus. All right, so they're cascading. You never have to scroll through more than one menu, more than one screen full of information. This is an either-or interface. You do not have to use it. As I always say, if you remember that F6 is bolding, it's much easier to press F6 and bold something. But if you don't remember how to do quick, how do you do tables of authority? Who knows? Who's ever had to do one? If you need to get in there and do that, it might be easier to go through the pull-down menus. So it's your choice. You don't have to decide up front which way you're going to use it. You can pull these up at any time. They are mouse selectable. You can hit your mouse button and pull them down, okay? You can also leave them on the screen all the time, or just pull them up when you need them. You can have a menu separator bar, as we've got up there, or you can shut it off. So you can control quite a few things about the mouse, about the menu interface. Okay? By the way, while I'm going through this, please ask questions. Don't wait till the end, because someone will go to sleep or you'll forget or something. So ask them.
I have a question.
Okay.
Because
Yes.
everybody knows the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a IBM that has 256K.
No, you cannot. 5.0 and 5.1 require 384K of RAM. So you need at least a... You don't have to if you're a masochist. You don't have to. You can run it on a 2 floppy system. It's not absolutely necessary that you have it. And if you've been working on a 2 floppy system, you already know it's kind of tough anyway, so you can used to it. But you don't need one. But you do need to have a little bit more memory in order to run it. Okay? It's going to be a 512K environment once you add DOS on there. Okay? Easier form selection. In 5.0, we told you that we were going to make it easier to create paper forms, that you were going to be able to go in and just say, I've got 8.5 by 11 paper, or 9.5 by 4 envelopes, or index cards, or whatever. That wasn't the whole truth. You did have to go into 3 or 4 different menus and set it up, and then if you wanted to use an odd-sized paper, you had to go back other every time you wanted to use it. That is no longer the case. You go to one menu, and one menu only, and that's under your paper size, under Shift F8. Okay? Go into, whoops, you have to hit the right key, page, and then paper size. And when you go in there into this menu, you set it up here once, and then forget about it. It will appear on this menu every time, whether it's a weird size or whatever you want to call it. Okay? You can name it anything you want, and you can select it at any time. Okay? Does that look a little easier? Now it does what we really said it would do in 5.0. Okay, going along with that, labels. Okay, how many has ever tried to do a label here and have done it without calling support? Yeah, all right. Labels were not easy to do. Now with the new paper setups, all you have to do is go in and read off the box, your label size and width and height and columns, etc., and set up your labels this way. But to make it even easier, 5.0 ships with a macro. Whoa, those colors are wonderful, aren't they? Well, you'll be able to read. It's a macro called labels, and it is a menu macro. My card is a little slow, so we have to wait just a little bit. But it will pull up a menu of all of the standard label formats that are on the market, Avery and 3M, etc. And according to what printer you have, you can just go in and select it. And when I hit return, it does all the setting up for me. Whoops. Already defined. Well, I'm going to continue with it and let it go. All I have to tell it is where it's coming from. See, it's even going to fix my margins if they're not correct for my particular print. So it says, where is it coming from? I'm going to say continuous, and then it's going on and finishing the label setup. So it will easily help you to set up basic mailing labels. Does that look a little better? Shift out of this. Okay. Some text formatting changes. Shift F6 centers a word. And if you want to center more than one line of text, you're either Shift F6 and type and Shift F6, or you type a whole block and then you center it. Well, what you can do now is turn on centering as a justification type. So I can go up here and start typing, and it's going to be centered forevermore. So if I'm doing a title page or something, I can just turn it on and leave it on. Right justification is the same way, or flush right, and it will wrap in from the right. Now, I always said I didn't know what this was used for. I think at VMI they told me, and I don't remember. But I don't know why you'd want to do this, but it is here if you need to. Tabs. A big request. Put the ruler line on screen so that you can see where your tabs are. Well, as a corporation, we resist that a little bit. We like the clean screen approach. We don't want ruler lines cluttering up our screen. So we think we went it one better. We understood there was a need to work with the tabs a little easier. But we go into our tab menu. This looks familiar to everybody, right? And from here you guess. Oh, maybe about 3.5 or 3.25, that looks right, and then you jump back out again and jump back in again. But now all I have to do is put my cursor on the tab, hold down my control key, and drag it. And it will affect the text automatically. Okay? I can add dot leaders. I can make it right or centered or left tab, and I can do that for each and every tab in the tab line. Does that look a little better? You think you can work with that? Good. Oh, something I forgot to tell you. In 5.0, we introduced the concept of absolute measurements. 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch. Well, I say that in 5.1, we now make them absolutely relative. You can go in and tell it to make your tab line relative to the left margin instead of the left side of the paper. That means if I choose relative, it's going to say +1, +2, +3, so that I don't have to redo my tabs every time I change my margin. It will adjust them all automatically. Okay? Remember, questions as I go along if you have any. Okay. Long file names. We've all gotten very creative in the DOS world with our file names. But after a while, you run out of things to call a letter to John or a report to somebody. So now we've added the concept of 40-character file names, descriptive file names. They are like a comment attached to the front end of the file. Okay? What we have here are the descriptive file name, the type of document, and then the file name. And I can call it anything from a label to text to a document to a proposal, whatever I might want to do. And then I also, because we are in the DOS world, have a DOS file name as well. Okay? Now, when I'm looking at the files this way, all I see are WordPerfect readable files. I don't see Lotus files, I don't see macros, I don't see graphic images, just WordPerfect readable documents. So, if I want to look at it the old way, because that's the first thing someone's going to ask is, can I look at it the old way? Yes, you can. It's an either or. You can change it back, and then you'll see everything, just like you always did. Back and forth, okay?
How do you get to that other?
5, short, long display. Switch it back and forth right there. Okay? Does anybody here use the document summaries? Or have they ever looked at them? I'm going to... Document summaries let you attach a header, so to speak, to a file, giving this information. Creation date, which is new. Revision date, which is every time it's saved. Document name, document type, author, typist, subject, and account, keywords in the document, and a document abstract. This means you can do searches on just this information if you want, instead of having to search an entire file. And now in 5.1, we not only let you print out the summaries so that you have a hard copy, but you can also save them to a file, so you can start maintaining an index of all the documents you've got there. Okay? So if you haven't used document summaries in the past, you might want to take a look at them now. You do not have to always use them. You can turn them on at will. I found the easiest way to turn them on is through the pull-down menus. Also, the long file names can be used even if you don't use the document summary screen. Those are split apart. Merging. We have done so much to merge, I can't even begin to tell you about it. It has been substantially changed, but I'll touch on some of the highlights. First of all, instead of saying field 1, field 2, field 3, and never remembering what field 1, field 2, field 3 was, you can now go in and say name, address, city, state, zip in your primary file and be able to call it in that way. You can name your fields. Number 2, you can merge to headers and footers, which I didn't know you couldn't do until it showed up as an enhancement. So now you can merge to headers and footers, also to footnotes and anywhere else that you might need to place merge codes. Okay? A selective merge can now be done using the merge programming language, meaning you can say if, then, else within your primary files and be able to select according to certain criteria. The merge programming language, I want to get to my merge programming language, is right here. Very similar to the macro programming language. But now you can even call a macro with a merge and have a merge call a macro, and you can get looping around so that you'll never get out. I will try. This one nice thing I noticed while I was going through this is that you can now put a merge field in there that will pull in the document file name, which means you could put this in a footer and have the document file name show up in every page of your document if you wanted to. So that if you're trying to find out where it is, you can include the full path and file name of the file. Okay? But just to give you an idea here, this is what the macro language is, merge language is like. Okay? Built in. Saw that? Okay. As I said, there's been substantial changes to merge. It is easier to use now than ever. It's also more complete. So I would suggest you take a look at the manual. And while I'm on the subject of the manual, has anybody seen the new 5.1 manual yet? There you have. Yes, it's 900 pages of small print. Yet it's easier to use than ever. What we have tried to do with the manual this time is to give you not only a learning and a reference section, but also some ideas about how to really use WordPerfect. In the past, we've given you sections on macros and sections on merging and sections on sorting, but we've never really told you how to combine those to really tap the power of the product. Now we are trying in the manual to give you some explanations of what you can do with the various different features. So we hope it lets more people become more proficient in 5.1. Okay? But it is much, much bigger. It will not fit your old 4.2 binder. It will barely fit the 5.0 binder. Okay? Graphics. We've added 30 new graphic images. With 5.0 you got 30. You got the good news and the bad news and the clapping hands and the thinker and gavel. And for those of you who are sick of those, just store it somewhere. But you do get 30 more with 5.1. These are draw perfect images. Anybody know what draw perfect is? I'll tell you. Whoa! They don't look like that all the time. I've got the wrong video display. It shows them obviously. Let's see what we do here. Display, graphics screen. Oh yeah, there we go. Now let's try it. Okay. 30 new graphic images. Where's my color? Gee, it should be all in pretty colors and it's disappeared. Something else we've done is added drop shadow as a default, so that when you place a graphic image within your document, you'll get the 3D effect automatically. You won't have to go in and play around with it anymore to set it up. We've done more links to graphic images, and this is a major feature. As you start adding more and more graphic images to more and more documents, your files get bigger and bigger, and you start running out of disk space. Now, if you're using the same graphic image over and over, such as maybe a scanned-in logo, there's no sense in storing it in each and every file where you'd like to use it. Now you can link to that, so that it appears at print time, it appears when you view, but it's not stored within each and every file. Okay? You can also do it the old way as well, retrieving it in. You can now do columns within text boxes. You can do tables within text boxes, but I haven't told you about that yet. And you can store graphic images within a style. So for instance, if you did have a scanned-in logo, it could be stored within a style rather than in a document. Okay? Equation editing. This is something universities have been asking us for quite some time. We can now do scientific equation editing. I'm going to go in now. It's another option on the graphics key, so you don't have to hunt too far for it. And what we do is give you the graphics equivalent at the top, or the graphics representation, and the English language, so-called, equivalent at the bottom. I don't talk. Now, I can go in here and say over X, for instance, and that graphic equivalent will show up as over X. Okay? Now, on the right, on my left or my right, you'll see that there's a list of commands here. Super, subscript, square root, inverse, from, left, stack line, matrix. Does anybody know what these mean?
Left and right.
Yeah. Squiggle, those are very important. Anyway, here are the various different commands, but we also have symbol sets, large, symbols, Greek characters, arrows, all different kinds of arrows, set signs, and of course, other. We also have functions, cosine, sine, tangent, arc, cosine, arc, tangent, etc. Once again, I don't know what any of those means, but I don't have to. Just you. Okay? Does that look fairly simple to work with? Now, showing you how easy it is to work. How would you print that out? Well, in 4.2 you couldn't. In 5.0, 90% of you couldn't, even though we said you could. Now, anything that we create this way will be printed as a graphic image. It can be printed on any graphics printer, any laser, any dot matrix. It just can't be printed on a daisy wheel. Also, it won't solve the equation for you. It will allow you to look at it. Now, going along with that ability to print any character, we can now print any of the 12 character sets that come with WordPerfect, regardless of whether or not you personally own the font. We create it as a bitmapped image. So here we have the extended ASCII. Oops. Well, it's multinational, and you can't read it too well. Typographic, math and scientific, Greek, Hebrew, Cyrillic, Japanese, they're all there. This is a representation. So if any of you have need to print in Hebrew or Greek or Japanese, you can now do it easily. Of course, you can still only see all the little boxes across your screen, so if you're typing a whole document in Hebrew, you might want to get a screenwriter. Unless you're a very good typist. Columns on screen. We've always had columns. We've always had the best columns on the market, although they were a bit frustrating at times, and they didn't always do everything we needed to do. We've always had newspaper and parallel columns, and in 5.0 we introduced extended parallel that finally crossed over page breaks intelligently. In 5.1 we introduced tables. What we do with tables, I think, and let's see, I'm going to set my color so that we can use document 2 a little bit better. This is driving me crazy. Didn't realize I was going to go in there so much. That's good enough. All I care about is the background. document 2. If I want to set up a table, by the way, this is the only key that changed on the template. It used to say columns and math. Now it says columns and tables. Although, as you can see, it's columns, tables, and math. All right? I press 2 for tables. I say create, and now I say number of columns. I'm going to say 6, although I could say 32. And number of rows, 12, although I could say 32,765. And I have a table. That's all I have to do to set one up. Now I can also go in and block out the top row, or however many rows that I want, and join them together. Whoops, join that together like that. Or if I hold down my control key, I can size a column. I could block it and split it apart. I can use my insert and delete key to insert and delete columns, rows, and cells. I can shade. I can turn the lines on and off. I can make the lines, let's see what I can do with the lines. I can make them none, single, double, dash, dotted, thick, and extra thick per cell. Okay. I can change my justification for each cell from center to right to left to full. I can change font type at will per cell, so I can go from large to small. And when I'm done, I can print this correctly on any printer. Because these are not line draw lines. These are graphical lines. It's not going to care if you use proportional spacing or big fonts or little fonts or whatever. Okay? Does that look fairly easy to use? You can bring in tabular text that's already been created into this. So if you've got 5.0 files you've been slaving over to get tab columns, you can bring it in and then fix them. It will even sort within a table so that you can sort across rows and columns, etc. Okay? Does this look pretty good? Okay. So using the table feature, you can now go in and create your own forms, because you can turn the lines on and off, as I said. You can also protect certain cells so that you can't type in them. So it jumps right past 4 and goes right to the areas that I want to fill in. Okay? Ooh. Okay. Now, as I said, that's going to print out correctly instead of having to worry about it wrapping all over the place. There we go, and you'll see that some of the big fonts, small fonts, etc. are in there. Okay? Think you have any use for this? Now, how many of you have ever used the math feature in WordPerfect? Nobody. Did anybody ever even look at it? That's why you never used it. Tables and math. And the old math feature is still there. You can still use it if you know how. It is a good feature. It just takes 6 months to learn how to use it. This is easier. All you have to do is go in and set up a table, and you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide by cell, like in a spreadsheet, so that I can go in and say, oops, tab over there, take this cell and subtract this cell and give me the answer here. You notice my status line? Tells me where I am. Left-hand corner will give me any formulas that I have placed in there. Okay? Up to 15 decimal places. And, oops, that should have been up higher. You can place merge codes inside the cells, so if you're trying to do forms fill-in, you can just merge into a form. Okay? So that's math. But what do you do if you need to have more complicated math? As I said, all you can do is add, subtract, multiply, and divide. If you need to do more complicated math, you'd go to what? Pardon? Well, you could go to Plan Perfect. Yeah. Anybody know what Plan Perfect is? Okay. We can import spreadsheets now directly from Plan Perfect, Lotus, Excel, and in the latest release of 5.1, Quattro. Okay, this just appeared. This is an example of how we do listen to our clients. Quattro was not in the first release of 5.1. A new release of 5.1 started shipping on the 19th of January. It now supports Quattro imports. Okay? We had enough requests that it went in.
question.
Yeah, yes.
Question on new releases.
Uh-huh.
Are you dating them this time?
Dating.
As in, you know, you have 16 different releases of 5.0 and you get the discs and stuff, you know?
Then you're in trouble. You have to go in and look. Yeah, no, we don't date the outside of the
Why
package.
not?
Money. Costs too much. What happens, as a matter of fact, because that would then mean we couldn't use half of the paperwork that we create. It would be far too expensive. One of the reasons we create and release so many interim releases is because we don't try to date or change the manual or anything like that. We try to respond to requests as quickly as possible. If we dated each and every one, I bet you we would release them about every 6 months. Okay, you'd have to wait, yes.
You're talking about saving costs. I'm always curious about how much money you're saving per floppy disk by not putting a reinforced hub on a 5.25.
A reinforced hub?
No reinforced hub ring on.
Oh, I see what you mean.
90% of the disk. I can't even buy a disk like that anymore that I'm aware of.
Boy, we must have tons and tons and tons. We probably bought.
How much money do you save per disk?
Well, when you figure we ship 100,000 copies of legal 5.1 every month, that's how many we sell. That doesn't count all the interim releases. It does not count the upgrades. That's 100,000 copies of just 5.1. It doesn't count Plan Perfect, 4.2, 5.0. That's a lot of floppy disks. We save a substantial amount. We really do. And we hope you're loading it on your hard disk.
It can cause a problem occasionally though, an old floppy disk drive if you're not careful with that center guide.
Okay.
Doesn't cause the computer support people much trouble. Those people out in the field are supporting.
Write in. Say you'd like, write to us. I'd like to address the interim release issue here just because it was such an issue with 5.0. I don't think we're going to see as many of them with 5.1 simply because it's a more solid product as it ships than 5.0 was when it shipped. 5.0 when it shipped was a nightmare. Believe me, it was no more of a nightmare for you than it was for me. Some of you had my home phone number. 5.1 is a more solid product. There are not the bugs in 5.1 that there were in 5.0. That's not to say it's completely clean. No software package will be ever completely clean. But it is much, much cleaner than 5.0 was way back when. Okay? The interim releases, we could go one of two ways. We could say, we'll save up all of your requests and bug fixes and printers and etc. and release one every 6 months or so and make it a new version. Or we can do it as we find it and ship it right out to you. We have decided that the best way to do it is to do it as quickly and as often as needed and get it out the door. That's our policy. You don't need to get all of them if you don't want to. Okay. Spreadsheet linking. You can now import directly into WordPerfect, and as it comes in, it can come in either as text or as a table with the lines wrapping all around it automatically. You can also link either an entire spreadsheet, a cell range, or a named range. So just certain information. Meaning, and I skipped right over that, you can link the spreadsheet rather than retrieving it. If you would like to have the information change as you modify the spreadsheet, you can do that. These are warm links. When I change my Lotus spreadsheet and go back to WordPerfect, I can either manually or automatically update those links to reflect the new information. Okay, so you don't have to keep re-importing. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Outline enhancements. We've changed quite a bit about outline. First of all, a simple thing that we've done has been to give it an outline region. Outline is on until you turn it off, just like bold. So you don't have to turn it on every time you come in now. Also, when I hit return, it takes me right down to the next level instead of all the way out and having to tab back in again. Okay? So it's a little easier. Whoa! Don't hit your wrong key though when you're in the middle of it. Also, you can create outline styles so that each level of the outline can do something different. You can also attach previous levels. It used to be you had to start at 1 or A or whatever was the first level. Now you can start numbering it 4 if you want to, or start numbering it C or whatever makes sense to you. Okay? A boring feature. A dormant hard return. Big user request. Dormant hard return. Does anybody know what it does? Okay. You put between a paragraph 2 hard returns. What happens when they hit the top of the page? you get a blank line, which you then have to go back and either delete or live with or whatever. Now, with our dormant hard return, when it hits a page break, it just disappears. When it crosses a page break, it comes back in again. Simple little thing, but it can save you a lot of time during editing of long papers. Okay? See what happens? It does work with double spacing. I tried it. I haven't tried triple spacing, so I don't know, but those two it does work. Okay, some changes to setup. We now allow you to specify different directories for graphics, styles, and documents. They should be 3 separate default directories. So that now, when you're ready to boot up WordPerfect, you no longer have to change directory over to your working directory. It'll automatically be there for your documents. Also, you can specify where your graphics are always going to be found so that you don't have to type in the full path name every time you want to retrieve a file. And this is especially important if you're going to be using the linking feature. So it will come directly from the graphics directory. And styles are the same way. And how many of you have never even looked at styles? Or know what they're for at all? Styles are a very powerful part of WordPerfect. If you haven't looked at them, you're really making a lot of work for yourself. They can save you a lot of time. A lot of changes can be stored within there and called up at will instead of having to do them over and over again. Okay. Internal mouse drivers. I can go in and pull from a list of mouse drivers, just like our print drivers, my mouse. And if it's not there, your mouse isn't there, it soon will be. Load it here, rather than in my AutoExec file or from outside of WordPerfect. And when I do that, I get to control some things about the mouse. I can control, first of all, the double click interval, so that how long it takes you before it recognizes the double click. I can go in and control the sub-menu delay time. So if you're like me, you just really mash down on the button, and I end up having menus flying across the screen when I didn't mean to. I can set that to be a longer period of time before the sub-menus pop up. I can also control my acceleration factor, how fast it skims across the page when I roll the mouse. Or I can make it a left-handed mouse so that the buttons are on the correct keys instead of the way they are now. Let's see, make it yes. And now the buttons will work the opposite way than the way they come out of the box. I'm left-handed. And I can choose assisted mouse pointer movement. This means when I click on the menus, the mouse will jump to the menus instead of having to be dragged up to them. So it will automatically go up there. That is the mouse drivers. Additional keyboard definitions. How many of you have ever looked at the ones that came with 5.0? Not very many people. There's a particularly good one called Macros that I use as my default keyboard. Now it also ships with other ones, Equation and Shortcut. Oh gosh, I bet I can't show you. I bet it's the one with the file on it. I took off one of the key files that I used. But there are now an Equation keyboard where all of your Greek and scientific characters are already mapped for you, and also a Shortcut keyboard full of all just quick ways around things. Merge field and record delimiters. This means that I can go in and specify what my merge field and record delimiters are going to be from an ASCII file. So if I'm using DBase, for instance, I can export it to a comma delimited file and merge directly to it in WordPerfect without converting it. Okay, and you control what these are called. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? It means instead of having to put all your control R's and control E's or whatever they're called now, and record and fields in there, you can just merge directly to a pure ASCII file and not have to change it. Of course, you can control your pull-down menu and color setup. We've always allowed you to control everything you wanted about your colors. And we've added now an adjustable reveal codes window so that when you go into reveal codes, you can go anywhere from one line to a full screen. And I can do it on the fly if I want to, too, by choosing Windows and then just using my arrow key. I can scroll all the way up or down. Okay? Whatever I might need to do. Now, WordPerfect 5.1 comes with a macro that will allow you to print out the document with the codes in it. If you would like to teach someone how to create a whiz-bang document, or if you'd like to do some troubleshooting on a document that's not so whiz-bang, you can now print it out with the codes in there and find out just what's going on. Okay? That's a macro. And there's another one that ships, and I can never remember what that is, but there are 3 major macros that come with it, and I don't know what the other one is. Okay, networking. How many of you are networking WordPerfect right now? Okay, big changes. Good news, bad news. Good news is you no longer have a server version to worry about. It is network ready as it comes out of the box. Okay? You don't have to buy a specific version. This brings us to another change, the installation procedure. You must use the install program. It really does work. It has all the files that it's supposed to have. Those of you at 5.0 know that that one didn't necessarily work all the time. But 5.1 does give you an installation program which you must use, and then you tell it whether it's going to be a network or a standalone at that point. Something else that the install program allows you to do is to pick and choose what files end up on your precious hard disk space. Formerly, we would take all 112 disks and dump them in and then wonder what we could get rid of. And you'd play around and you'd delete some files and maybe you deleted some things you needed. Now you can go in and during the installation procedure it will tell you these files are essential or these aren't necessary. Okay? Oh, bad news. In the school world, in the educational world, it doesn't matter so much because hopefully most of you are purchasing under the site license program. However, in the real world, the cost of the network stations just doubled. And there's good reasons for that. Anybody guess what that is? It goes back to the same reason why we use those diskettes. Money! We were not making very much money on our network stations. As a matter of fact, we were grossing about $50 a package. At that price, as networks just got more and more popular, we would just go out of business that much faster. So we were forced to raise our network price. Okay, we've added a couple of importing conversions that we didn't have before. Microsoft Word and Multimate Advantage 2. Microsoft Word 4.0 is the same file format as Microsoft Word 5.0, so that you can go back and forth between those two. Hopefully you're just going to come one way, our way, but you can go back and forth. And you've also got Multimate Advantage 2. Okay? Oops. Some additional features. We finally added context-sensitive help. So if I'm in the middle of setting up a table, for instance, and I press help, I get help on setting up a table, not on everything that begins with T. Also, notice over in the right-hand corner what it says there? Every screen tells you how to get out of help now. So that instead of showing people what cancel means all the time, as I always do, you can press enter and get out. Okay? Dictionary-based hyphenation. Anybody ever use WordPerfect's hyphenation feature? It didn't work. It was based on an algorithm. It could be guaranteed to hyphenate incorrectly because the English language does not work the way that our hyphenation algorithm worked. Now every word in the dictionary is hyphenated correctly, I trust. I haven't tried them all. I'm going to skip right over fast save. That's something a concept that's gone away. The speller will now check for irregular capitalization. So that instead of telling me that that word is spelled incorrectly or skipping over it entirely, down the bottom it tells me irregular case. What do I want to do with that? And I can just say replace it, and it will fix it and go on. Okay? Also, improved macro programming language. How many of you have looked at the macro programming and tried to play around with it? One improvement we've made is that the documentation is much better. Okay, so you can figure out why we even put in a macro programming language in the first place. And secondly, it now allows you to include unlimited named variables. It used to be you were limited to 10 variables. Now you can have unlimited. You can also go out to DOS and come back in again while in macro. I haven't figured out why you want to do that either, but you can. Dithering. Does anybody know what dithering is? Besides what I was doing when I got here today, running around. Dithering is how well WordPerfect or any package can translate those pretty VGA 256 color graphic images to a black and white image for printing, because all of us have black and white printers, or at least most of us have black and white printers. If you didn't have good dithering, you'd end up with a black blob on a white piece of paper, because dithering is how well colors are translated to shades of gray for detail. 5.0 has always had good dithering. 5.1's is just that much better, so that you can truly print out some very complicated color images and get all the detail in print time. Okay? This is something that was in 4.1. How many of you go back to 4.1? Okay. In 4.1, there was a capability of printing out pages from disks. Do you remember? And you could say print page, and it would go right to the printer. In 4.2 and 5.0, it suddenly started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know where that came from. So now as an enhancement, that's gone away again. And it will shoot right over to the printer. But now you can print multiple pages from a document that you are working on. Instead of having to print page, 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 or a block, you can now go in and say print page 2, comma, page 5 through 22, comma, page 100, without exiting from the document. Okay? Is that good? Okay, good. Also, faster printing altogether. 5.0 did a good job of the printing, but it did slow down a little bit. In some networks, that could be a problem. We have done all we could to speed up the printing processes of 5.1. Now, of course, you understand that if you're printing graphics, it's going to be slower. But when it comes to just text, we have increased the speed again so that it's back up going out quickly. Now, something that we've also done is that if you go to this screen and stay there, WordPerfect devotes all of its resources to getting the print job out of the queue just as fast as it can. Now, that doesn't mean you have to, but if, for instance, you were initializing a printer, you know how long that can take to download some soft fonts? You could come here to this control screen, and it will just devote everything to getting that print job out, trying to make it go as quickly as possible. Okay? Also, now, under options, we give you the option of allowing your multiple copies of a document to be generated by WordPerfect or by the printer. In the past, it has always been done by WordPerfect, so that if you were printing a 15 copies of a document, you had to wait until all 15 copies of that document were out before you could exit WordPerfect or do something that required getting out of WordPerfect. Now, if your printer has the capability, you can tell it to generate those multiple copies at the printer. And that means the print job will get out of WordPerfect that much faster. Okay? All right. How long did I talk? 45 minutes. Just about. So, I'm going to stop now. I've covered most of 5.1. You're going to see a lot of minor changes that I don't know about or that we haven't bothered to talk about. As you know, every time we change something, there's more that we can possibly put on paper. But tell me now, what didn't you see or what have you heard about that you'd like to know more about? Or what feature did we go over that you need more information on? Yes, sir.
Can you show me how you would enter one of those fancy file names?
One of the fancy file names, these long file names, it's done at the setup. And under setup, you would go in and tell it, gee, where is it? Is it under initial settings? I can never remember this, so it's under environment. Aha, here it is. Notice number 3, long document names. If you say yes to that, when you save a document, and I'm not going to save this one, so let me go over here. When I hit F10, it just comes up and says long document name, and I'm going to say this is a table sample. Document type, my default is document, but I can change that to whatever I want. Now, it will suggest a file name. It will take the spaces out and take the first 8 letters of the file name and the first 3 letters of what the type was. But you can override that. That way, if that's what you want to do. Okay?
You're not dealing with directory names at that point.
No, because I've already set up my default directory for my documents. Let's see, is it under initial settings? No, wait a minute, right here, it's under locations and files. And notice here, I say my documents are going to be under data WT. Someone else with, yes, sir.
Do you have Draw Perfect here?
I do. You want to look at it? Okay. I have it. I have version 0.09 of Draw Perfect. You cannot blame me for anything it does. I can tell you that Draw Perfect, we have been using it internally for quite some time. It is a very workable, very usable program. It's just not quite clean enough to release to the general public. It's about a sample of what 5.0 was when it did ship, so we are being more careful this time with Draw Perfect. And it won't go out till it's 2 or 3 interim releases down the road. That said 1.0, that's a lie. Okay. Ooh, I might have the wrong display set up here. So, one of the first things that you can notice about Draw Perfect is it uses the same keys as WordPerfect to do various different things. Oops, except I didn't order on my graphics drivers, so never mind. And I can go in and change my colors. Whoa. I knew what I was doing it. Change my colors. Just as I can in WordPerfect, okay? One of its strengths is that it is WordPerfect compatible. Help works the same. The function keys as much as possible are the same. So that Shift F6 is center and Alt F6 is flush right within a text box. However, as with any draw package, we've got pull-down menus. And you can also click and select with a mouse. Okay, so I can use my and click over here, for instance, on the arc, and then start drawing with an arc. And then I rubber band it. Okay, now I'm doing this without a mouse because I don't have my mouse with me, so I'm making it up and I don't know what happened to the arc. So. It disappeared. Okay. Oops. Back out of this. Exit. Okay. Notice when I use my pull-down menus, under Edit, for instance, the selections correspond to the left-hand icon menu. Over on the left, those, for instance, Delete corresponds to the ones going down to the left of it. The same with Draw, so that as you go down through the Draw menu, the icons to the left of that correspond to it, so you can figure out what those icons are. Okay? Attributes. Now you're not going to be able to see this because for some reason it's not doing color, but we use up to 256 colors. That's more than any graphics package that I'm aware of right now. We can do up to, still not through all the colors, we can do up to 64 fill styles or line styles. Different widths. Now, something I'm going to show you. Draw Perfect comes with over 20 fonts built in. These are created in Draw Perfect. They are bitmap, scalable, rotatable, sizable fonts. You do not need to own these at the printer level. So you can go in and create whatever you need right here. So if I chose that, Broadway, and I can choose point size right there. Right now it's set for 30. I'm going to go in and choose it. Text box, by the way. Oops. My colors are set backwards. Well, it should be typing across the screen. I told you it was 0.09. And be able to see, you will see the fonts on screen as they're going to print. They will be the graphic representation of them. Not in WordPerfect 5.1 where we just show you serif and sans serif. We show you the actual fonts in Draw Perfect. And I don't know what's wrong with that colors. Okay, a unique feature. Wish you could see my keys. That would be. What's that? A unique feature to Draw Perfect is its list files capability. Now it looks like WordPerfect, so you all know how to use it, right? If I would like to go in and look at a graphic image, in WordPerfect you have to retrieve it. In most other graphics packages you have to retrieve it. In Draw Perfect, all I have to do is hit look. And then I can page down through every graphic on the disk and see them all. Now, if I had my colors set correctly, this would all be in color as well. These are some of the images, by the way, that ship with Draw Perfect. We have a selection on animals. Let's see what else is there. Animals, computer, special, which gives you some holiday sections. Let's see what else. So that you can go in and look through all of the images without having to retrieve it. Now, any one of these images are modifiable, changeable, whatever you need to do. It ships with 500 of them, so that if you're like me and can't draw a straight line at all, you at least have something to start with, so that you can combine and add and do whatever you need to with the 500 images that come with it. We plan on releasing books of 200 images every now and again on different subjects, things like education and business and marketing, so that you will have specific graphic images for those areas. And before I get any further afield, people who know graphics packages, do you have some specific questions that I can answer about Draw Perfect? You asked to see it. Do you have?
Can you set up an entire page, or is that the screen?
It is a page program, a page-oriented program. That's what you do, is a page at a time. Okay? Is there a clipboard? Meaning for what?
So you can put things off on a clipboard while bring it back in.
Cut and paste.
Cut and paste on.
You can cut and paste as you can, let's see. Except I've never heard, pardon me?
Under edit.
Move, copy, delete, undelete, size, rotate, front and back. I don't know exactly whether any of those are what you're looking for.
A clipboard would just be a way of holding that so you could go to another graphic and put it in. Cut it from one, put it in another,
Oh, well,
without losing it.
what you would do is the same thing that you can do in WordPerfect, is cut it, and it stays in a buffer until you retrieve it back in again. I mean, that's the same way WordPerfect handles its cut and copy features as well. You can even delete it and then undelete it, if that's what you want to do.
Do you have a
Yes,
spare
sir.
page?
Doesn't have multiple drawings. Like that multiple documents.
No, it does not have multiple drawing screens. It does not. You can't draw, that I'm aware of, you can't switch between drawing one and drawing two. What is,
Do you import other kinds of graphics?
yes, it will import all the same ones that WordPerfect will. TIFF, PIC, HPGL, CGM, PCX, whatever, they all are. Okay?
Specify how big your final output page is going to be.
Yes, you can control the page size just like you do in WordPerfect.
And how about with output devices? What kinds of output devices go with?
I don't have a list of all of them, and I'm sure I don't. Let's see, let's go under, no, I only have printers here instead of any of the output devices, so. Yeah, I don't have all of them yet, but there's the DP Tech letter report, whatever that is. You can create slideshows with Draw Perfect by creating the graphic images and then linking them together through our presentation right here. So I can just go in and list files, grab an image, and I could just type it in if I wanted to, but I'm going to go in and grab it this way. And I can control, for instance, the advanced options this way. So I have normal, in, right, left, up, down, fade, overlay, right out, right in, top in, and spots. This is the way the slides will go. Fading in, fading out, dissolving to spots, coming in from top or bottom or left or right. Okay? I have no idea why I can't get the colors on this, but it will be, as I understand it, network ready as it is shipped. So it will be like WordPerfect in that it will be done through installation whether or not it's a network package. Okay?
And you have right now no concrete idea when it's going to be released? Or
Well, I'll give you a random guess, and I refuse to be held to it, but we're really shooting for March, the end of March. With a slip time into April, but we don't expect it to be any later than that. That doesn't mean it won't be. I always hedge my bets. But we've been working on Job Perfect now for well over a year. So it's getting there very rapidly. And what they have at corporate is always 2 or 3 revisions ahead of what we get in the field. They obviously don't send us everything. They get us a barely working copy to kind of show people, but otherwise they don't send us the new stuff. That's what it is. Yes?
You have a new version of Office.
Due to be released very shortly, Office 3.0, major upgrade, major changes. First of all, what we are doing with Office is we are making it a multi-server, giving it multi-server capabilities. We are giving it remote capabilities, also gateways to other environments. Scheduler has been substantially changed. It now looks very much like mail, as a matter of fact, with an inbox and an outbox for scheduling requests. There's been quite a few changes, but I won't know all of them until I go. I'm actually going through training in Massachusetts on that at the end of February. So that's very shortly going to ship. As a matter of fact, Office, the product is on hold right now. They aren't shipping anymore because 3.0 is that close to going out the door. So you can't buy Office from Real Perfect right now. You can only get it from distributors. Yes?
If you have an agreement with the university for 5.0, and someone using that order 5.1 for a reduced cost, or does that require another agreement? Or I don't really know enough.
You mean the site volume pricing agreements? If you have that, there's an upgrade path built into that site volume pricing agreement. And whoever is administrating that for your university, that should know. It's right in the, but I brought, it's in my car, the brochures that tell you how to do that. The person administrating it should know how to upgrade. What it will be is you'll have to purchase another master copy. Is it a full master copy that you purchase?
I don't know.
Well, I'm in that same boat. I was an administrator, and I called up Word Perfect Help, and they say, our cost is like $40 per copy for the first time. I said, sorry, your upgrade's $85 per copy.
Oh, no.
This is direct from your helpline.
When did you talk to our helpline?
It was, about 3 or 4 weeks after you announced.
Yeah, don't. When it comes to pricing, the support people, the 800 support people know one price and one price only, and they are not allowed to quote anything else. They just are not allowed to quote anything else. You must call the educational sales department to get correct prices. If the support people had to deal with pricing issues, they'd never be answering support questions. So they just cannot answer them. And if they quoted anything less than what the highest retail value would be, they would be in so much trouble because they would end up telling the wrong person that they could buy it for $40. And then we would be held to that price. So they can only quote the full upgrade price, which is $85.
Perhaps I would at least know who to refer you to.
They should tell you to call educational sales. Who do you order your packages from? But I mean, you must have a contact there that you send the orders to. Yeah, that's who you should talk to, is your person who's been administrating your contract at Word Perfect. They're the ones who know all the prices up to date, and but it is the same price for 5.1 as for 4. I don't know, 5. Of course, the manuals, you will have to replace the manuals. You're going to need manuals for 5.1. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You got a Windows version coming out?
We have one coming out. I mean, I'm not giving you a ship date on that. I'm going to say third quarter. That sounds good. Third quarter. It is in dual development with our OS2 Presentation Manager version. Yes, we are working on a graphical user interface for both Windows and for PM. As you've noticed, 5.1 is not a graphical user interface, and it won't be. It will not be for some long time to come, until everybody, including me, owns a 386 machine that's fast enough to handle the graphical user interface. WordPerfect DOS will not be there, because too many of us don't have even hard disks yet. But under the Windows environment and under OS2, yes, we are doing a graphical user interface for that, specifically for those environments. And also for, of course, under the Mac world. Yes, sir?
Can you tell me something about WordPerfect Executive?
Well, I can tell you it as it stands right now. I can also tell you that they're sneakily revising that without telling anybody what's going into it. Executive right now is 4.2 compatible files. Its executive is a scaled-down version of WordPerfect, PlanPerfect, and Library. It all fits on one 3.5-inch diskette. It was directly created for the laptop world, but it certainly works on a desktop computer as well. It does not have all of the functions, obviously, of its big brother products. What it has is an excellent letter writer, memo maker, basic word processor built in. It has a speller, but it doesn't have a thesaurus. You can't do